Hi, good morning, Liz. How are you?
Hi, Whitney. Really good. Thank you so much for the invite to do this interview. Really
No
excited about it.
problem.
Mhm.
Yes. So, my name is Whitney Mélinard, and I am an Indigenous rights and social and climate justice advocate. And I'm also the CEO of Kupanol Inc., which means I am strong in my Indigenous language. And I'm here at COP29 as a delegate of my country, the Commonwealth of Dominica, and also as a delegate of Island Innovation with the Caribbean Climate Justice Leaders Academy. So, as we have background about the VOP, the Virtual Ocean Pavilion is a free online platform dedicated to raising the visibility of the ocean and showcasing why the ocean matters in climate negotiations and really to all life on our planet. The aim of the VOP is to democratize the ocean at COPs and to promote unity and inclusivity whilst increasing knowledge and commitment and action for ocean climate nexus during key events like this year's COP in Baku, Azerbaijan. So the purpose of this interview is to provide our attendees with a better insight on COP, the discussion process, status, and to really let them know what to expect and what is going on at this year's climate conference. So thank you really for taking up the time of your day. I know COP is very busy, especially this week. So could you please tell us your name, your affiliation, and what is your role here at COP29?
Thank you so much, Whitney. Yes, so my name is Luz Gil. I am an ocean and climate advisor at the Nature Conservancy, and I'm here at COP supporting the ocean and climate work that we do at the Nature Conservancy and also other partnerships that we have, like the Mangrove Breakthrough, the Marrakesh Partnership for Global Climate Action on Oceans and Coastal Zones. So, yes, supporting the nexus between the ocean and climate change.
Okay, great. Wonderful. What are your expectations coming into COP29 and what would you consider to be a success for the ocean among the COP29 outcomes?
Thank you so much, Whitney. Yes, I think this COP is very important. I know that right now the discussions are mainly centered in climate finance and also the national determined contributions that have to be submitted next year. So I think that's also something very exciting for the oceans. So we all know that the oceans are great solutions for climate change. They are a great carbon sinks, so they are a mitigation tool, but also they are great for adaptation as well. They provide resilience for coastal communities. So I think what I would like to see at this COP for the oceans is first making the case, since this COP is very much focused on climate finance, making the case that ocean finance is climate finance. So making sure that the oceans are part of the solution and that are included and integrated in all the discussions regarding to finance. So making sure that in the new collective quantified call and Article 6 as well, and the delivery as well of loss and damage fund, we have the ocean represented. We have access to funding and also the mobilization of finance flows for ocean-based solutions in these discussions. So I think that would be a great win, let's say, for the ocean at COP29. And also, as I said, these discussions this year, they are also very much focused on nationally determined contributions, as many countries or all of the countries that have signed the Paris Agreement, they need to submit their new enhanced nationally determined contributions or NDCs. So I think also making the case that oceans are a great tool both for mitigation and adaptation and advocating for the inclusion of these ecosystems in NDCs. So I think that's a great way to prioritize action towards these ecosystems, to also support the finance flows towards these ecosystems as well, and prioritizing these ecosystems overall. So I think that would be a great win as well. And also powering the ocean breakthroughs. So the Marrakesh Partnership for Global Climate Action on Oceans and Coastal Ecosystems last year at last COP in Dubai, they launched or we launched the Ocean Breakthroughs. So this is a multi-stakeholder partnership focusing on five key aspects of the ocean. So making sure that these five breakthroughs are also a part of the conversations and we can mobilize different stakeholders in the ground. And lastly, I would say also making sure that we see the outcomes of the ocean and climate change dialogue permeating into different discussions through the processes that we have here at UNFCCC. So making sure that the recommendations, the solutions that are showcased in the Ocean and Climate Change Dialogue, and there's a report that the facilitators showed this year. So making sure that these recommendations are also portrayed in the discussions. So I think making sure that the ocean is well represented. I feel like sometimes we have climate change discussions and then oceans discussions, and they are always happening in silos. So making sure that we're showcasing the ocean as a main solution for climate change and having these discussions not in silos approaches. So making sure that we have integrated approaches to the ocean. So yes, I think that would be a great win for the ocean at COP29.
Absolutely, I agree. So you mentioned in your introduction that you are interested in focusing on the mangrove breakthrough at COP. And again, you mentioned the breakthrough in your expectations. So could you please tell us more about the mangrove breakthrough?
Yes, of course. So the mangrove breakthrough, it was launched at COP27 in Sharm el Sheikh, so 2 COPs ago, and it's an initiative that was launched by the Global Mangrove Alliance, which is a really important organization with different organizations working on mangroves. So it was launched by the high-level climate champions and the Global Mangrove Alliance together, and this initiative aims to first protect the future of 15 million hectares of mangroves globally by 2030 by mobilizing $4 billion in sustainable finance and through collective action to halt loss of all mangroves, double the protection of mangroves, restore half of all mangroves globally, and lastly, ensuring sustainable finance to mangroves. So this is a really interesting initiative, and I think it's a great example of multi-stakeholder partnerships collaborating together to achieve this great goal. So yes, I'm really excited about this partnership, and just to mention that mangroves, they are also great allies for climate change mitigation and adaptation. The way I like to see them, they are nature's multitaskers because they are great ecosystems for mitigation. They store up to 4 times more carbon dioxide than terrestrial forests. Then also they serve as hubs for biodiversity. So, and also we have the adaptation component. They are great nature's buffers for against hurricanes, sea level rise, erosion, hurricanes. So they are really multitaskers in protecting communities, in sequestering climate carbon dioxide, and also protecting biodiversity. So that's why we came up with this initiative. And right now we have in the mangrove breakthrough, we have 30 governments that have endorsed the initiative, and also over 60 multi or non-state actors that are involved in the initiative. So yes, so I think that's a great initiative. And tomorrow we're going to have, tomorrow actually is the Oceans and Nature Day at COP29. So we're having several events speaking about the importance of the mangrove breakthrough and how the mangrove breakthrough is mobilizing governments and finance towards mangrove ecosystems. So yes, for sure, I think that would be really good to have portrayed in COP29. And yes, and we look forward to continue mobilizing different stakeholders for the future of mangroves.
Yes, thank you. And I like where the discussion is leading. So you mentioned collaboration. Could you expound more on what collaboration is needed with among stakeholders in order to make the successes for the ocean happen? And what would be the best alternative to your desired outcome at COP for the ocean?
Yes, I agree. No, I think we have seen in different, like in the past, in climate conversations and climate negotiations, and I think that tends to happen a lot, not only in climate, but in all like global policy discussions, that we tend to work in silos. And I think something that it's really great, and especially the Marrakesh Partnership and the high-level climate champions, they have been advocating not only for the government side and the mobilization of governments, but also the mobilization of other stakeholders that are really involved and that are crucial for achieving the goals of the Paris Agreement. So I think that's something that we need to continue to push forward at COP29 and at future COPs, because definitely I think governments, they have a really important role, and they are critical for achieving the goals of the Paris Agreement, but also private sector, we need to mobilize more finance, financial institutions as well, and of course also civil society organizations and NGOs, IPLCs as well. So I think it's great that we're now moving to and leaving a little bit behind these siloed approaches and moving to more multi-stakeholder partnerships and catalytic partnerships to achieve the goals of the Paris Agreement. So yes, I think in this case, the ocean breakthroughs and the mangrove breakthrough is a great example of these multi-stakeholder partnerships that we need to achieve this. So for example, going back to the mangrove breakthrough, right now we have governments endorsing the mangrove breakthrough, but we also have private sector, we have banks as well, pushing forward the breakthrough, as well civil society organizations. Of course, one of the organizations or the part that developed the mangrove breakthrough is civil society organization and NGOs working on mangrove conservation and restoration. So yes, I think that's really important, and I think there are several barriers. Like even though we're moving towards this less siloed approach, ocean governance, I think it has many barriers that we need to overcome. So for example, I think something that I notice a lot regarding ocean governance is that there's like very fragmented governance, let's say. So in many governments, and I would say this happens in most governments, that different organizations and different entities, governmental entities, are in charge of ocean governance. So for example, we have fisheries ministries, forestry ministries when we're speaking about coastal ecosystems. So making sure that we try to make a less fragmented and ensure that there's like multi or cross entities, cross secretaries coordination in the ocean. So I think that's something that is really important. Then also, of course, we have funding gaps. As we all know, SDG 14 is the less funded SDG among all the 17 SDGs. So making sure that we leverage different mechanisms, innovative mechanisms for achieving finance for the ocean. Of course, public finance is really important, but right now there are a lot of innovative mechanisms that we can use for the ocean. So for example, there are bonds, for example, TNC is a great advocate for nature bonds. There's debt swaps as well. There's insurance, we can insure ecosystems as well. So making sure that we are looking to different aspects. And of course, philanthropy has a great role in bridging this finance gap. So making sure that we're looking to all of the different mechanisms that we can move to achieve the closing of this funding gap. Then of course there's capacity and data limitations. So many coastal nations, they lack the resources or access to high quality data necessary for effective cross sectoral management. So that's, I think, the civil society and NGOs and academic institutions and research institutions can have a great role in supporting governments in achieving or bridging these capacity and data limitations. So making sure that connecting the dots between the science and the necessities for governments as well. I think that's something very important. And of course, equity and inclusion. So the ocean impacts millions of people living in the coast. So making sure that we're hearing their voices and we're integrating them in the solutions. I think this is also very important when we speak about breaking up these silos. So I think coastal communities, local communities, indigenous peoples, they have to be part of the conversation and part of the solutions. So making sure we're having them included first in the discussion of what they need, and also in the tools that we develop both from government side and from civil society. And also in this, when I speak about this capacity and data limitation, and making sure that we develop the best science, the best technology, the best practices, making sure that we have a local and IPLC knowledge as well integrated, and making sure that we reach these capacity and data limitations. So I think that's also something very important. So I think we're moving towards that point, but for sure there's a lot of work we need to continue moving. And I think in this case, the Marrakesh Partnership, the Ocean Breakthroughs, the Mangrove Breakthrough are great platforms for trying to achieve that and connecting the dots between all of the different actors working towards the government, towards the oceans. So I think continue to moving forward to this type of catalytic partnerships and trying to break these silos. I think that's very important.
Absolutely. And you touched on two things that I also wanted to bring into the conversation, and that would be local communities and indigenous peoples. And of course, closing the finance gap between the ocean and finance. First, with indigenous peoples, we are a week and a half into COP. could you tell me where we stand on including Indigenous peoples and local communities, the knowledge, everything to do with respecting Indigenous peoples into the discussion on climate finance and climate financing?
Yes, no, I think that's a great question, and for sure, I think local communities, indigenous peoples have a great role, and they should have a seat always in any climate discussion, in climate discussions about finance, climate discussions about adaptation, about mitigation. So I think there should always be a seat for IPLC in these discussions, and I think we're moving towards that. So I think it's great to have representatives like you having and youth as well, also having representatives from youth in this conversation. So I think we're moving towards that. And I think it's great to continue moving forward to these type of conversations and having representation from IPLC in these discussions. And yes, and I think we're progressing well on that sense. And I think also, for example, me from the perspective from civil society and working in an NGO, we're always making sure that local communities and indigenous people have a say in the solutions that we present and in the science that we develop. So actually, just recently, last year, the Global Mangrove Alliance released a report on locally led knowledge, for example, so how we can apply this locally led knowledge in mangrove restoration, mangrove conservation, because for sure, local communities, they have been managing and living and also supporting the livelihoods from coastal communities and coastal ecosystems. So these communities, they are the ones that know how to preserve, how to conserve, how to restore these ecosystems. So making sure that we apply this great knowledge that they already have. So in the case of the Nature Conservancy and the Global Mangrove Alliance and the work that we do regarding coastal ecosystems, we're always making sure that we have a local-led knowledge and coastal communities involved in our projects, because that's the only way, in my opinion, that we can make these projects that and these solutions that we try to promote, that they are long-lasting and that they are sustainable. That's the only way that we can ensure that if we have the community involved in these solutions. So yes, very exciting to see so much progress on this.
Yes, thank you. It makes me very happy to hear that as well as an Indigenous young person.
Yes,
I am pleased with the progress that we are making. While it is not ideal, you still have to appreciate progress being made and
exactly.
appreciate people like you and your organization who are taking the steps forward to include Indigenous people's knowledge. So thank you very much. And now in terms of the ocean finance gap, what strategies or mechanisms do you think should be explored to close that gap?
Yes, no, I think that's a great question, and maybe I can go back a little bit on the mangrove breakthrough, because I think the mangrove breakthrough it's a great partnership because it has a focus on mobilizing finance, sustainable finance towards this ecosystem. So we have a goal to mobilize by 2030 $4 billion. So one of the ways that we're trying to mobilize this $4 billion, first of all, at last COP, at COP28, we developed and we launched a financial roadmap that maps how we can mobilize these 4 billions towards this ecosystem. So there are several recommendations. For example, of course, public finance should be one of the key aspects, but not only public finance. We have philanthropy having a great role in this. We have innovative mechanisms like debt swaps, bonds, even carbon markets and credits that can support financing restoration or conservation of mangrove ecosystems, and even innovative business models for these ecosystems. So supporting local communities in developing business models around, for example, mangroves. I think that's also a great way to channel finance for these ecosystems. So yes, so trying to see different, and I think something that I have seen with the mangrove breakthrough is that governments are taking a great role in the case of conserving and restoring mangroves, but also other sectors, they want to be involved in this and they have great finance and great resources to make this happen. So we have had great conversations, for example, with HSBC, that they are great supporters of the mangrove breakthrough, with Salesforce, with UBS Optimus, and they have great resources and great work as well on mangrove conservation. So I think it's more about knowing where is the finance and where are the projects that have a high quality, we call them high quality projects, that have the integration with the local communities that are mobilizing best practices, that are using best practices, the best science available for the conservation and restoration of mangroves, and making sure that we have identified these high quality projects and the finance, and making sure that we connect the dots between the both sectors or the both streams of work. So I think that's something that we have been doing with the mangrove breakthrough, mobilizing different stakeholders and identifying innovative ways of finance to make sure that we have these $4 billion for the ecosystems. So yes, I think that could be a solution, but for sure, we need all actors that are involved in climate finance involved in this.
Yes, amazing. Thank you. So again, back to collaborations and forming these partnerships. How can countries be supported to increase their understanding of the potential ocean solutions, understanding the potential of ocean solutions, and what can be done to promote efforts to include ocean solutions in their NDCs and their NAPs?
Thank you. No, I think that's a great question. And as I said in the beginning, I think this year is very important, and this COP is very important when we're speaking about NDCs. So as I said, countries, they are expected to submit their enhanced, like every 5 years, they need to submit a more ambitious NDC. So I think this represents a great opportunity to, first of all, to increase climate ambition. And I think a way to do that is to include the ocean as a solution for climate change. So I think the upcoming NDC cycle is a great opportunity for including the ocean, for including coastal ecosystems, blue carbon ecosystems in NDCs. Because I think NDCs are a great entry point and a great way to prioritize the ocean and prioritize and send signals as well to the international community that we need action towards these ecosystems and towards the ocean. So yes, I think I would really advocate for countries and there are several countries that are doing so. So continue doing that, enhancing those commitments if countries have already included blue carbon ecosystems or the ocean in their NDCs. And for those that haven't, to start doing so, because for sure, as I said, the ocean has great potential not only for mitigation but also for adaptation. So I think continue doing that. And thinking about blue carbon ecosystems and how they can be included in an NDC, there are several resources that the NGO community working on blue carbon ecosystems that we have produced to support governments in doing so. So, for example, there is a BCI, there's the Blue Carbon Initiative. We produced together with them a guidance for including blue carbon ecosystems in NDCs. So this document, I think, is a great document because not only tells you what is important and why it's important to include blue carbon ecosystems in an NDC, but it shows you a step-by-step process in which you can include blue carbon ecosystems, for example, in the mitigation section of an NDC, in the adaptation section, in the GHG inventories. So I think it's a great guidance for doing that, and that's available for all governments. There's also, for example, the Blue Carbon Handbook that was produced by the Ocean Panel. So it also provides a great understanding of what are blue carbon ecosystems, why they are important for policy, for including them in NDCs. And also something that I would like to highlight, because I have been speaking a lot about the mangrove breakthrough and governments endorsing the breakthrough, and something that we're doing right now with the breakthrough is that since we now have 30 governments endorsing the initiative, we were thinking on how we can move past this endorsement that are an expression of support toward the breakthrough, how we can move into actual tangible policy actions with these governments. So just recently in June in Bonn at the Substas, we launched the Mangrove Breakthrough NDC Task Force, which aims to support these 30 governments that have endorsed the Mangrove Breakthrough, support them into including mangrove positive commitments in their NDCs. So I think this is a great example as well of these multi-stakeholder partnerships that we need to continue moving forward. This initiative is led by Pew Charitable Trust, but also is supported by members of the Global Mangrove Alliance, like the Nature Conservancy, like Conservation International, the NDC Partnership, also the high-level climate champions are involved in this initiative. So what we're doing is reaching out to these 30 governments that have endorsed the breakthrough and offering our support. So it's a pro bono support and tailored support depending on the national circumstances and priorities of each country. And something that we have noticed is that all of these organizations that we're working with the NDC task force, we were already doing amazing work in different regions. So it's just coming together, mangrove experts, policy experts as well, and seeing how we can support these governments into including mangrove positive commitments. So I think that's a great example of those resources that are out there for governments to include blue carbon or coastal ecosystems in their NDCs. And yes, so I think these are some examples of those guidances, those tools that are available. And I think the NGO sector is taking a great lead in providing technical advice to governments. Maybe I can go back to the Nature Conservancy and one key example that we're working on. We're working on with Pew and the government of Jamaica. So right now we're working with the government of Jamaica in including blue carbon ecosystems in their upcoming NDC. Specifically, we're looking to include mangroves and seagrasses. So I think it's a great example because we're working first on the science part. So mapping the state of the mangroves, mapping the state of the seagrasses in Jamaica, and then the carbon stocks as well. And then we're also doing the policy support, doing capacity building workshops with the government and other stakeholders involved in country in Jamaica. And also I wanted to know that the science support and the policy support, we're doing it also with local partners. So for example, we're working with the University of the West Indies in developing this science and identifying the different stakeholders to collaborate with. So yes, I think that's a great example of the work that NGOs are doing in supporting the promotion or the inclusion of blue carbon ecosystems in NDCs. And maybe also thinking, because I think NDCs are a great entry point for developing national policies also on the ground. So also thinking about some of the work that the Nature Conservancy is doing in Papua New Guinea. So actually PNG in their previous NDC, they included a commitment of developing a blue carbon strategy in the country. So now, after having this commitment in their NDC, the Nature Conservancy is supporting the government of PNG in developing a roadmap for the inclusion of blue carbon ecosystems or for developing a policy around blue carbon ecosystems. So I think that's also a great example of how we have a commitment in the NDC and that can be later translated into a policy on the ground. So yes, and for sure, I think NDCs and national policies, they have to be aligned. So also something that we're doing in PNG is making sure that the upcoming NDC, because of course they're also updating their NDC, making sure that it's aligned with the national roadmap that we're developing for blue carbon ecosystems, and the other way around, that also the roadmap is aligned with the upcoming NDC. So those are some examples, and I think the NGO community is a great partner for governments to provide technical advice. We have the science, we have the best practice. We already have people on the ground doing amazing work on mangrove conservation and mangrove restoration. So I think it's just connecting the dots and providing this technical advice. So those are some examples.
Yes, thank you so much. As an alumni of the University of the West Indies, I am pleased and I am proud to hear that as well. Yes, and I think more of that is what we need to see the commitments be transformed to tangible climate and ocean actions that benefits our communities, and it doesn't just stay on paper. So yes,
That's
hopefully
amazing
we
to
have
hear.
more of that in the future.
That's amazing.
Yes. So in your opinion, how effective is the ocean and climate dialogue in providing a formal and regular forum for countries and relevant stakeholders to exchange lessons learned, challenges faced, and opportunities to strengthen ocean-based mitigation and adaptation actions? I know you would have mentioned a few of this in your previous answers, but if you could tell us a bit more, I would be grateful. Thank you.
Perfect. No, I think the Ocean and Climate Change Dialogue is a great platform for advocating for the ocean and climate discussions. the Ocean and Climate Change Dialogue, it was implemented, or first, we had the first edition of the dialogue in 2020. And I think it's great. And I think it's something that the NGO community was also advocating for a lot. Because as I said, I think at the beginning of our interview, is that before discussions of the oceans were happening in one conference or in one room, and then the climate discussions were happening in another room. So I think it's a great way to connect the dots and to have the ocean represented in UNFCCC processes by having this climate change dialogue. We have seen great progress as well since it's the very first edition in 2020. Since Sharm el Sheikh, we have appointed, or UNFCCC has appointed, two facilitators that have the mandate to lead the process of the climate change dialogue, to identify thematic, because also one key outcome from Sharm el Sheikh was first the identification of these co-facilitators, and also having thematic or teams identified for leading this dialogue. So I think that has been a great way to maybe identify those pressing issues on the ocean. So for example, the previous two dialogues, they have been focused on ocean finance and on blue carbon ecosystems, on technology as well. So I think, yes, the ocean dialogue is a great platform to connect the dots and bring the ocean into climate change discussions. And I think we have moved past on just having a dialogue and just discussing why the ocean is important, to now having key case studies on the ocean and what is the role of the ocean in climate change. Case studies as well, tools also. I think the climate change dialogue does a great work on highlighting the tools that can support parties and non-state actors in climate change and oceans. So yes, I think the Ocean and Climate Change Dialogue is a great platform. We're looking forward, because in the previous two editions, Chile and Canada were the facilitators of the dialogue, and now they have finished their tenure as co-facilitators. So we're looking forward to see who will be the next facilitators, and how we can continue supporting this process and identifying the key thematics for the next dialogue in June. So yes, I think it's a great platform, and TNC has always been very supportive of the climate change dialogue. And also, I think something that I think it's really great is that the Ocean and Climate Change Dialogue has great representation from NGO sector as well. So I think that's also a great way to do this cross-pollination, let's say, on the work that NGOs are doing, and also the work that other stakeholders are doing.
Ask one last question. If you had one key recommendation for promoting the ocean climate action, what would it be and why?
Yes, can you repeat the question? Sorry, I got a little bit distracted.
Yes, if you had one key recommendation promoting ocean climate action, what would it be and why?
Perfect. Yes, I think this interview has been very much focused on multi-stakeholder collaboration. So just keep moving forward different stakeholders towards a climate action. I think that's the key, because it cannot rely on one stakeholder, let's say on governments or parties. So we need to mobilize, and this is an urgent need. So we need to mobilize all stakeholders and all streams of work. So I will close with that.
Yes. Well, thank you so much,
Thank
Luz.
you so much,
for
Whitney.
taking out the time. I understand that you're very busy right now and you must leave, but thank you again.
Thank you so
I
much.
really enjoyed the conversation. So hopefully, if we have the time, probably towards Friday, we could have another interview to discuss it in its entirety, what happened at COP with regards to the
For
ocean
sure.
and climate. So
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Whitney, for having this interview.
thank you. Thank you
Bye.
again.
And I look
Forward
forward to
seeing
meeting you
this
in
week.
person.
Yes, of course.
Bye.
Thank you. Okay, goodbye.